Well, I couldn't create this video because yesterday I was super busy, but I came across an evidence from Stg Ndlovu. Now, I said to you guys, there's a video of advocate, or there's a long video. In this long video, we will be specifically talking about what is happening on the Senzo Meyiwa trial. What is happening on the Senzo Meyiwa trial, if you don't pay attention, you can be deceived by the state when they insinuate, and sometimes they don't even substantiate whatever they are seeking to insinuate. In this case, it is the issue of pictures, right? The pictures that accused number 2 is being made to admit, it is done deliberately, so to say that during arguments that no, but he admitted to the pictures, right? Thanks to Ntanzi for standing his ground. I want to take you back to Ndlovu. When Ndlovu spoke about how pictures are edited, it was under cross-examination by advocate Mshololo. Now, there are 2 videos that I need to insert because I want to give you context, a proper context to this. There's something that is very much important in all of this that you need to know. Definitely you will know about all of that. So pay attention to what we are about to do. Let the journey begins. Where does it begin? It begins with the video from advocate Mshololo. So I said I've got 2 videos. So it begins with a video which depicts advocate Mshololo cross-examining Stg Ndlovu. But this one does not have context because it's shorter. This is what it...
The question I'm going to ask it because you have just been a police officer generally over the period of 20 years. In your experience as a police officer, do you know that the pictures are capable of being edified? I'm not sure whether I'm using the correct word, of being edited. Oh, thank you, my lord. Of being edited, the pictures. I'm not talking about your skills. I'm asking generally that are you aware that pictures, they are capable of being edited?
Athi-ke kule minyaka yakho onayo-ke noma kule sipiliyoni sakho naso ngaphansi kwezesiphoyisa, ingabe unalo yini ulwazi lokuthi iy'thombe esikhathini esiningi bavama ukuthi bazijobelele, usho ukuthi bavama ukuthi mhlawumbe lapho-ke ba-edithe-ke basebenzisa ilimi lesingisi?
Nginalo.
Yes, I do have a knowledge of that.
It does happen.
Kuyenzeka yini lokho?
Yebo kunjalo nami ngiyakhona ukukwenza.
Yes, it is so, and I am also able to do that.
To edit pictures.
Usho ukuthi ujobela iy'thombe, edit iy'thombe ngesingisi. Yes.
Thank you, my lord. I've got no further questions.
Okay, yes.
So you've got a situation on the Senzo Meyiwa case. Our biggest problem with the Senzo Meyiwa case is this. If you look at advocate Baloyi, I said this before. Even Sbanda, Dr. Sbanda, did the same thing. What they did was to try and weary Ntanzi. That is what advocate Baloyi is doing. You know, Musa N, there's a channel that is namely Musa N. He's called me, I think it was yesterday. He said to me, did you hear advocate Baloyi saying this is page 200 out of 1,000, out of 1,000? And I was like, does it mean that we are still having to go through probably over 800 pages? So in other words, this cross-examination can take almost a month from now. It is possible. Although the judge has raised some concern with that to say, why don't you just say this and this and this and this and this and this same? Or that's what I'm saying. But even if maybe it's not 1,000, maybe it was 34 out of 200, still it means that you still have weeks of cross-examination ahead of you. And that is something that is important. It is important to note that one of the things that they seek to do is to overwhelm Untanzi with a lot of unnecessary questions. I said to you guys previously, what they are doing is to make sure that Ntanzi is tired. So when he is tired, then they will say, or they will ask the critical questions. You must notice, when you are still fresh, they are not going to ask you a lot of questions. In fact, in the morning, they will ask questions not because really they are looking for answers for those questions, but the key questions will come when they notice that, okay, now you are bound to get tired. So they target specific time of the day to say, if we start the cross-examination at 10, we are building up to a question that we're probably going to ask around 12. That's the most important question. Maybe before the long adjournment at 1, then maybe 2 or like around 2 or around 3, they are asking you key questions. But in between, the questions that they get to ask you, they are not important as much. But if you make a mistake, they can also pin you on those questions. That is what we are seeing, Tuntans. That's why we keep hearing Tanzi saying almost the same thing, to say, I've answered this question and I said, my phone was not with me. It was with the police who arrested me on the 16th of June. Tanzi keeps going back. They keep asking questions. And I'm sure if it was the defense that are doing that, the judge would have rebuked them, the judge would have stopped them, the judge would have overruled them. But because it's the state, they get away with things. And such is the behavior we're seeing on the Senzo Mayor case. But I want to play you this video. In this video, I want you to watch every single thing that is said here.
Mr. Ndlovu, I have very few questions for you, just for me to understand the relevance of your evidence.
I mean, ngike imibuzo enginayo kuwena-ke ukuthi nje mina-ke ngizwe noma ngikulandeleke ukuthi-ke ubufakazi bakho-ke buyini noma buthini.
I understand you have confirmed that you are not the one who prepared the photos contained in Exhibit DD 4B.
Ngiyakuzwa-ke ukuthi-ke ushilo ukuthi akusuwena-ke owahlanganisa iy'thombe lezi ezikuyena Exhibit for DD 4B. That's correct.
But you were led by the state through the content of this exhibit. Am I correct?
Kodwa-ke umbuso-ke ukholileke ngamagama-ke ukhulumile nawo-ke ukhombisa kona-ke u-Exhibit DD 4B lona. That is correct.
And we have confirmed the content of this exhibit in line with the information that you had in your USB, which you led this court through the screen that is before this court.
Wase uqinisekisa-ke lokhu okulana ngokuhambisana-ke ne-USB lena wena-ke i-USB yakho le uyikhombisa-ke inkantolo la. That is what I did.
Because you have led evidence regarding that, therefore I am going to ask you the questions regarding your testimony about this exhibit and what we have testified on the USB.
Ngoba-ke wethule ubufakazi-ke mayelana nalokho ngizokubuza-ke imibuzo mayelana nalokho kanye futhi-ke nobufakazi bakho mayelana nayo i-USB. Fine.
Okay, thank you. My first question is, are you a facial identification expert?
Ungabe uyena yini ungoti-ke ekuchazeni ubuso noma-ke uchaza-ke ukuthi lokho ukuthi i-identification yobuso, i-facial identification expert. No.
And also, we are not experienced in that department.
Futhi ke isipiliyoni awunaso lapho.
Yebo.
That's correct.
Okay. Then my second question is, you gave the dates on which the pictures contained in Exhibit DD4B were taken. You remember?
Uyakhumbula yini ngoba unikeze ngama dates ke ukuthi ithombe lezi ezikuyena uDD4B zathwetshulwa nini?
Yebo.
Yes.
You'll correct me if I am generalizing wrong, but from these few pictures, you testified that they were taken in 2020. Am I correct?
Uzosho ke uma kuukuthi ke lokho ngikushoyo ngikusho ke wrong noma ke kuyiphutha ke kodwa uma wethula ubufakazi ushilo ukuthi ithombe lezi ke ezango 2020.
Njalo.
That's correct.
And none of the pictures that you referred this court to contained in these exhibits were taken on the 26th of October 2014.
Asikho nesodwa ke isithombe kule ithombe ke othule ubufakazi ngazo kulona ke exhibit leli ezathwetshulwa nge-26 October 2014.
Iqiniso that.
That's true.
And you further testified on the deleted pictures.
Ubethulile ke ubufakazi nangeyithombe ezadelete.
Njalo.
That's correct.
And in your testimony, you said when you are using your XY X-ray thing, when you are retrieving the information, you are able to deter even the pictures that were deleted. Is that correct?
Ushilo ke nokuthi uma ngabe ususebenzisa yona ke noma sothi XRY noma ke X-ray ukuthi uma ususebenzisa yona ke uyakwazi ke nokuthi ke uthole ke ithombe lezi ebese icishiwe. That's correct.
No. So actually, scientifically, that can't be true. Something which is deleted, and I'm using it as an adjectival noun as used by the advocate. She says you are able to retrieve the pictures that were deleted. You understand the statement?
Uthi ke uadvocate umekhuluma ke ukuthi ke uyakwazi ukuthi uyibuyisele uyithole futhi ke ithombe ezideletiwe.
Ngiyasizwa istatement sakhe njengoba izolo ngichazile masikhuluma ngeyithombe njengalesithombe lesi engithi ngasidilitiwe la. It's just a thumbprint ukuthi isithombe it was there. It's already deleted. There's no information on that photo.
That's it.
Yiloko ngikushilo ke na izolo ke ukuthi ke iyatshengisa nje ukuthi isithombe sasikhona ke lapho.
Yeah, but textually, it shows a copy at the least of what was deleted, not the original. Yeah, I want to be precise in my thinking.
Ngifuna ke ukuthi ngisho lokho ke okushiwa ukuthi ke kuyicopy ke akusona ke isithombe lesi ebekuyisona ke kodwa icopy yaloko ebekade.
Because if this case goes somewhere else,
Mr.
somebody else will
Ndlovu,
say.
I am not fighting with you. Please don't be emotional. I'm not fighting with you. I'm just clarifying the evidence, what we have said. That's why I said, correct me if I am wrong.
Ngilisane ke nawe ngizocela ingakho ke ngishilo kwena ukuthi uma kuwukuthi ke ngenza iphutha ke ube uyise uyalungisa ke manje angilisani noma angixabani nawe ukuthi nje ngifuna nje ukuthi ke kube ngicacele.
Nami ngiphendula umbuzo
I am also responding to a question that I'm being asked.
Okay. So let's reduce emotions. I understood you to say even the deleted pictures through your machine you are able to retrieve. You have now clarified the manner in which you are able to retrieve, that you can only be able to retrieve a copy of that picture.
Bekuyindlela ke mina bengikuzwe ngayo ke ukuthi ke uma ke isithombe sesicishiwe ke noma sideletiwe ke nakho ke ukuthi usibuyisele kodwa manje usuyachaza ke ukuthi uma ngabe usibuyisela ke noma usithola futhi kuyisube kuyicopy lokho. I heard you.
Okay. So in other words, what you shown before this court, it was not the real picture, it was a copy because the original had been deleted.
Okusho ukuthi ke lokhu okutshengiswe khona lapha noma evezwe khona lapha ke bengasona ke isithombe original noma ke uqobo lwaso ke kodwa ke i-copy.
ngizophinda ngichaze.
I'll say it again.
Lento uma ngabe isithombe esidilito is just a print ekhomba ukuthi isithombe besila and then sideletiwe. Yingakho singana le information engenzansi ukuthi asithethweni and the stuff.
What you see there, it is just a copy, which is an indicator that the photo was there. Hence, we do not have the information underneath that guides us and tell us as to when was it taken and stuff.
Okay. Thank you. So it means even your XY ray formats that you use to retrieve the deleted information could not you could not get the information as to when was the original picture taken. Thank you. Mr. Ndlovu, I'm going to repeat the question again so that you can answer. I didn't catch up the answer because the interpreter was disturbed. Okay.
Bathe bazophinda babuze umbuzo futhi ke mnumzana uNdlovu ngoba kade ukudlule kokhona la ngekho.
My question was that the deleted pictures, even when you are using the X-ray format that you were using to retrieve those pictures or copies, you also could not deter the date on which those deleted pictures were taken.
Bathi mana nodaba lweyithombe lezi abayicishile sebayidilitile ngegama lesingisike uma ngabe uyibheka bokungekho ukhona ukubona ilanga le abayithwebula ngazo.
Yeah, unjalo.
Yes, that is correct.
And you also could not deter the date in which those pictures were deleted.
And futhi bongaboni ilanga la bacishe ngazo izithombe lezo noma ilanga lela badelete ngazo ithombe.
Yeah, unjalo.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And then the next question that I'm going to ask is about the observations that you gave regarding the content of the face that is depicted in these pictures.
Wathi umbuzo olandelayo abazokubuza wona umayelana nodaba lesikhangiso sobuso ke lobu kade bukhuluma ngako noba kade ukhuluma ngako ke uqhamuka kule ithombe lesi.
Okay.
I'm listening.
I know firstly that you are not an expert, but as an adult person, I'm going to ask you this question.
Athi ke unalo ulwazi lokuthi wena ke awuyona ke ingcaphephe noma uchwepheshe ke lapho ke kepha ke uzokubuza lo mbuzo olandelayo njengomuntu omdala ke.
The pictures depicted in this exhibit DD4 depicting a picture of a person with an oval beard that we have described before this court.
Bathi ke ithombe ezikhona ke lana ke kulombukiso ka exhibit DD4 kunesikhanyiso somliso thizeni futhi umliso thizeni okhona ojangala kule ithombe lezi ke intshebe yakhe kusho ukhathe njengo O shape.
Yes.
Yes, I'm listening.
So even that explanation that you gave to court of the description of the oval beard and the description of the hood and the hair that were appearing in some of the pictures, you understand?
Wathi kubuza kumuzo bana nodaba lwehood futhi nangendlela umuntu akhona igunde ngayo ke intshebe yakhe sibathi O shape ke loyo ke futhi nangendlela la kade agqoke ngayo isigqoko kule hood yakhe yakuzwisisa lokho. Yes, I'm listening.
You cannot be able to tell this court that this is the picture that resembles the person during the period of October 2014.
Bathi angeke utshele inkosi yenkantolo ukuthi ke lesithombe salomuntu okhona ngalana ke isithombe sifanca machine nomuntu kade akhona ke ngelanga lange 26 zaka October ngomnyaka 2014.
Iqiniso eliphelele.
That is the honest truth.
Okay. Thank you. And also the fact that I'm going to accept the date that we have testified about here in this court to say these pictures were taken in 2020.
Athi uzolamkela ke ilanga lebokhulume ngalo ke ngesikhathi ukuthi ithombe lezi ke bayithwebula ngomnyaka ka 2020.
So also as a human being, you cannot then say because these pictures because this person looks like this during the period of 2020 when these pictures were taken, it means is the same, resembles the same features of the pictures of the same person during the period of October 2014.
Now the witness is invited to argue. It's an unfair question to the witness. That's correct, please.
My Lord, I did not hear the basis for the objection.
Just repeat your objections.
Counsel is inviting the witness to argue the case for the state. That will be for the state to argue,
All right.
not for this witness to comment.
As the court pleases, my Lord. My Lord, if I may respond, it's because the witness was taken through the pictures, if I may be specific, my Lord, and not be general. Through exhibit DD4A, with the comparison of a picture, my Lord, which was of an identification kit, which was taken in 2014, and the witness was led regarding these two pictures, my Lord.
What does it say about the one picture which was in the identification parade? This witness, what does it say about it?
My Lord, the witness was asked to give description of these pictures, to say
Not the clothing or the apparel.
yes, to give the identification of these two, and the witness even
Is it
said
the clothing or the facial?
he
Because
gave
you're arguing that he's not a facial expert.
he gave both, my Lord.
Facial.
Yes, my Lord.
And then the apparel also, he's not an expert on identifying apparel.
Apparently.
Yeah, put it to him.
No.
When you say wearing a toga or a robe which is gray and red,
Yes.
it's putting it to you that you're not able to identify that.
No, my Lord, but that's not my question for now. For now. my
I
Lord.
thought you said even the apparel, you can't be able to identify it.
No,
I
my
see.
Lord. No,
Okay,
my-
fine.
My Lord, I was responding to the objection, my Lord, to say the reason why I am entering into this field of evidence is because the witness had been asked to comment on these pictures, my Lord.
Yeah, fine, go ahead.
Thank you, my Lord.
kade kuza kumeli mana nodaba ke lesithombe ke ngamashila lapho sikhona ke lapho kumbukiso ka DD4A lapho kade khona ke isithombe sathubulwa ke lapho ke esikhona ngaphakathi kwale kit kade ke khona nje umuntu lo kade ejakala ngendlela lena ke ngonyaka 2014 futhi bekabuza kofakazi mana nesithombe leso ngesikhathi kade kuqhubeka phakathi kwesithombe sango 2014 futhi nesithombe sathubulwa ngomnyaka 2020 ke lapho ke labathi khona ufakazi kade bebuza imibuzo manqamashima nodaba loloko lesithombe leso. Are you listening?
Thank you. And I even said, I am asking you this question not as an expert, not because you're an expert. I am asking for the general information as a police officer. You understand?
Athi-ke ukubuza lo mbuzo ngoba ke wena ke yazi ukuthi wena ke awuyena ke uchwepheshe kepha ukubuza ngoba ke wena ke uyiphoyisa futhi umsebenzi wezesiphoyisa.
If you have no answer or you have no response, you can just say so.
Athi uma ngabe ungenayo into ongayikhuluma noma mthanda impendulo mayelana nombuzo lo ke kumele usho nje njalo ukuthi cha anginayo ke impendulo mayelana nodaba lombuzo awubuzile. I am listening.
So my question is because you were asked by the state. You remember this exhibit?
Bathi kade ubuzeke umbuzo ithimba labashushisi noma umshushisi mayelana nalofakazi khona ke lapho lombukiso ka DD. Ngiyabona sesithombe lesathe kutshengisa sona ummeli baba.
Yeah, ngiyakhumbula.
Yes, I do remember.
Then my question is, can you say, because this person,
Sorry, Madam, let me talk to Mr. Ganza. Thank you, Madam.
Yes.
thank you. My last question, my Lord, on this exhibit.
Okay.
Can you now say, because this person resembled these pictures, then it means it's the same person as this picture, same picture on the same exhibit. It was reddish when you testified about it. You remember? And we know this one was taken in 2020. This one we don't know, but it was identified as the person who resembles these facial features during the period of October 2014.
Bathi kule thumbu lezi zimbili ke khona ke udaba angathanda ukuthi akubuze ngalo ke ukhumule khona nje ukuthi wena ke ngesikhathi ukukhuluma njalo kulawuthize khona ke umbala obomvu khethekile mhlawumbe ubomvu kade khona kule sithombe lesi. Wathi sithombe sokuqala lesi singalana esandleni sokunxele. Uma ngabe usibhekile kwasithubula ngomnyaka ka2020. Kepha isithombe sesibili ke sona ke sithombe kade besho khona njalo ukuthi abazi ukuthi basithatha basithubula ngasiphi isikhathi noma sathu kuthathwa nini ke lapho ke. Kepha bathi lo muntu ujakana njengalomuntu kade angenile akho lapho lelikhaya ngiyana manje umbuzo ukuthi ingabe uyakuvuma ukuthi lesithombe lesi esikhona ngalana ke lesi eselana la gqoke khona ke ngobe bovu umuntu wakhona ke futhi lesithombe singangeni. Lesithombe singale ngabe siyafana namashina lesi ngoba lo muntu okhona kule sithombe ngabe uyafana yini?
Hayi anginampendulo angina-comment.
Thank you.
No, I don't have a comment.
Thank you. Thank you for the
But
honest
truth-
answer.
Yeah, sorry, are you
And-
going to re-examine?
I will re-examine my.
No, I'm not done yet, my lord.
You said it's the last question.
Oh, on this exhibit, my lord.
Oh, I
I said
see.
last question on this
Oh,
exhibit.
okay, fine.
Thank you. Thank you, my lord. Then I just need to clarify this for the record in case I understand it wrongly. You testified during the period of 2023, Mr. Ndlovu.
Bathi babundlovuko walethi ufakazi bakho ke ngomnyaka ka2023 ngabe iqiniso yini? Yes, that is true.
At the time when you testified in 2023, had you retrieved these pictures into the disk and into the USB that we have just presented to this court?
Bathi ngesikhathi lesi bolethe ufakazi bakho ke ngomnyaka ka2023 umbuzo ukuthi ngabe le thumbu lezi bosovele uyifakile ngaphakathi kwedisk futhi ne-USB yakho.
Ngicabanga ukuthi ubuyela ku-question engichaze kwayizolo ukuthi i-disk ngase ngiyenzile kodwa i-USB iphuma ku-backup yami ekhona e-ofisini engiyilethela.
I think I did answer to that question yesterday. I already made out the disk. No, I already printed out the disk back then. However, the USB is coming up from my backup system, which was in my office.
Ngaze ngachaza nokuthi if ungachecka i-disk i-date eyenziwa ngayo uchecke le USB esikhuluma ngayo ine-date yakuthanga. That's the difference.
I also further explained that the date it is not the same in terms of the printout date on the disk and the printout date which was on the USB.
Okay. The disk, now if I understand it, is that your evidence was stored in a disk. Then the disk, when did you give it to the state? If you can remember, if you can't recall, it's okay.
Bathi ufakazi ukuthi wena bonke ufakazi kade ukuthubulile ngoba kade uphethe wabufaka ngaphakathi kwedisk angithi manje kumbuzo ukuthi ngabe ke ithimba labashushisi walipha ngaliphi ilanga leyo disk uma ukukhumbula usho kepha ngabe ungakhumbuli usho futhi
Angeke ngikhumbule ngoba incwadi yami le abasayinela khona izinto nangabe bezozilanda ayikho la.
I cannot be able to recall the date simply because of the book in which they usually sign off things when they are coming to collect them. It is not with me.
Okay, but you still remember who signed for the disk?
Kunjani?
Yes.
And who was that?
Ubani kade signed?
Sajel Mukhane.
It was Sergeant Mukhane.
Was it sealed, that disk, when you gave it to Sergeant Mukhane?
Bathi lo disk ngesikhathi buyipha ko Sergeant Mukhane ngabe kade nisilile nivalile ivaliseke kahle.
Injalo ngoba nayizolo ngeke ngachaza ukuthi i-exhibit ke ngayisile.
It is so.
In the exhibit back number, so it was sealed.
It is so. Even yesterday, I did explain to that that when I was done with the bag, I did seal the bag, and it also has an exhibit number, exhibit bag number,
Okay. And then it is also your evidence that you do not know as to when were these pictures retrieved from your disk. Pictures containing Exhibit DD, when were they retrieved from the disk to this photo album?
Ngabe kufakazi bakho ugcina ke izolo thize awunaso isiqiniseko ukuthi ngabe izithombe lezi ezikhona la ngaphakathi kombukiso ka DD uthi bayikhipha nini ke ngaphakathi ku disk?
Yep.
Yes.
And you don't know as to where the disk has been kept from the time when you handed to Sergeant Mohale up till the time when these pictures were
futhi ukuthi umbuzo
transferred to this exhibit.
Futhi wona awazi ukuthi disk khona ke bayithatha bese bayibeka kuphi ke ngesikhathi lesi uqedwe ipho Sergeant Mohane kuze kufike kufinqe isikhathi lesi kade bekhipha ke ithombe lezi noma beprinta ke ithombe lezi.
Ngicabanga ukuthi lokho ngingachaza kalula ukuthi njengoba ngichazile mina uma ngiqeda ukwenza umsebenzi wami uma bese bayisayinele angisangeni indawo lapho angisazi ukuthi kwenzekani ukuya phambili ngibe ngicela ukuthi mangabe ungibuze ngalokho okuhlanganisa mina ngoba ukuthi iye kuphi mase isayinele kimi iphumile ngiqedile ngayo wami umsebenzi usuye ngiqedile.
If I may be allowed to explain this in this content, can you please ask questions with regards to the time frame or time period in which the disk was with me? It's simply because of after I had signed off for the disk, I don't know as to where it ended nor where it has gone to. What I know about it was during the time frame the disk it was still in my possession.
No, thank you, Warrant. I accept that you don't know because it was no longer with you.
Atiyabonga futhi kwamkela ukuthi wena awunalo ulwazi ukuthi ngabe yini enzeka ngoba kade ngekho nawe ke idisk yakho.
Yabo.
Thank you.
Mr. Warrant Officer, I know that you are not a facial identification expert, but you have been a police in the service of the SAPS for how long?
Athi ke ummeli uyazi ukuthi wena ke awuyena ke umuntu osebenza na mhlambe uchwepheshe osebenza ngokuqhathanisa phakathi kobusuku babantu ke lapho ke kepha ke umbuzo engathanda ukubuzwa ukuthi ngabe uneminyaka ungaki ungaphansi kwezesiphoyisi noma usebenza njengephoyisi?
Over 20.
It's over 20 years. But my lord, my apologies. Can I want the witness to speak out loud? Don't
warn him, request him.
I'm requesting him, my lord.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, cishila about 20 ngikhumbula kahle.
I think it's around 20 years. I can't remember exact.
Okay. The question I'm going to ask it because you have just been a police officer generally over the period of 20 years. In your experience as a police officer, do you know that the pictures are capable of being edified? I'm not sure whether I'm using the correct word, of being edited. Oh, thank you, my lord. Of being edited, the pictures. I'm not talking about your skills. I'm asking generally that are you aware that pictures, they are capable of being edited?
Athi ke kule minyaka yakho onayo ke noma kule sipilweni sakho naso ngaphansi kwezesiphoyisi ingabe unalo yini ulwazi lokuthi izithombe esikhathini esiningi bavama ukuthi babazijobelele usho ukuthi bavama ukuthi mhlambe lapho ke ba edit ke bomsebenzisi ilimi lesingisi?
Nginalo.
Yes, I do have a knowledge of that.
It does happen.
Kenzeka yini lokho?
Yebo kunjalo nami ngiyakhona ukukwenza.
Yes, it is so, and I am also able to do that.
To edit pictures.
So to ujobela izithombe, edit izithombe ngesingisi. Yes.
Thank you, my lord. I've got no further questions.
Okay, yes.
So, journey with me on this video because it's one of those videos that you sit here and you say to yourself, let's have a conversation about the Senzo Meyiwa trial. You see, this is the trial that have taken us, or it has shown us the other side of the state. And I'll say this, and I want you to understand me. I want you to understand me well here. You see, prior to me doing the Senzo Meyiwa trial, when a person gets arrested, I totally believed that the police wouldn't have just arrested you. They are not just harsh. You must have done something. It is something that before the Senzo Meyiwa trial, I will strongly, in fact, I wouldn't care, no matter how much a person was trying to explain that they did not do that which they are accused of. I wouldn't care. Because in my mind, I would say the police wouldn't have just arrested you. But the Senzo Meyiwa trial have shown me, it has proven to me that you can get arrested and get sentenced for something you have never done. So personally, it has changed my perception about people who are arrested. There are people who are arrested who even today, some of them still deny a clear evidence. Some of them, they used to deny doing whatever or committing whatever crime they're accused of until they got convicted. Some of them, after conviction, maybe few months, then they started admitting that. So you understand that it's a known thing that people never admit to a case. Generally, there are people who plead guilty. That is known. But the percentage of people who will plead guilty is very small compared to the percentage of people who just deny that. So we came from that to say, most people often deny. So we also, we also believed and put police at a high pedestal because we thought that institution is governed by nothing. It is governed by nothing else but integrity. The Senzo Meyiwa trial have proven that actually the opposite is true. One, there are people who are serving sentences that they are serving sentences out of a crime they've never committed. Two, it is possible that you can get arrested just because somebody is framing you. The Senzo Meyiwa trial have proven all of those things. But again, the Senzo Meyiwa trial has also proven to us that you can trust the state if you want to, but do it at your own peril. Because you ask yourself a question. If it wasn't for the Senzo Meyiwa trial, and if it wasn't, it's not just for the Senzo Meyiwa trial alone, but if it wasn't for the interest that the people have on the Senzo Meyiwa trial, I don't think we will have been where we are today. I don't think so. I honestly believe that we will not have been where we are. When you look at the Senzo Meyiwa trial, just to prove you something, just the Senzo Meyiwa case in general, before this whole trial, before it went on, or before content creators on YouTube took over the trial and started pushing that content, before us, there were people on a social media platform such as X. We know how much people used to fight for that case. We know that journalists used to write about that case. We know, and I know as a matter of fact, that some of the people who used to fight hard trying to expose the shenanigans on the Senzo Meyiwa trial, some of them were threatened by some of the members of the SAPS in the hierarchy. I'm talking about people from the national office. Journalists were threatened on this case. So people who are quiet these days, they were threatened. Most of them, they just did not decide that they just want to be quiet about it. But they had to look, or they had to value their lives. Where am I going with this? If you look at the Senzo Meyiwa trial, as far back as 2014, there has always been people who stood firm and said that, guys, there's shenanigans here. Way before the accused got arrested, people stood firm and say, there's something shady that is happening on the Senzo Meyiwa saga. Back then, when these people got arrested, luckily, it was during the time where other people now started to realize that they want to talk about that case on YouTube. And I must give credit, one of the channel that did well is Mzansi Reality. They used to do a live stream. There are many content creators who have come and gone on the Senzo Meyiwa trial, either on X or on YouTube, then TikTok. We used to have a lady by the name of Lelo N. She's no longer doing this thing. Those are people, personally, when I started this, I was looking up to them because really I trusted their brand. I knew that they had a strong brand and they commanded attention. We have the likes of Clantis, who's no longer doing the Senzo Meyiwa trial. He does it there and there, but he's no longer doing it consistently. But those are people, when I started, in fact, before I started, those are people who were doing this case. I don't want, in fact, let me rather say, I want you to understand where I'm coming from. This is where I'm coming from. I'm coming from this angle. These people have done quite a lot. I mean a lot for us to be where we are today. Where are we today? We are here. YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or X, formerly known as Twitter. The content creators in this platform, they can talk about the Senzo Meyiwa trial. But I can tell you now, content creators that have caused more damage on the Senzo Meyiwa trial are the ones on YouTube. YouTube content creators caused more damage on the Senzo Meyiwa trial than any other content creators. And I'm going to tell you why I'm saying that. Men Are Not Paradox said things then, and at the time, that account was the only account that was opposing everything, and that is why it was easier for them to target him, because to target the owner of the channel or of the page, because that was the only person who stood firm. But if you look at YouTube channel versus, or if you're looking at YouTube channels versus Instagram pages or all other social media platforms, what YouTube is different in this way. YouTube, people can watch a video today and they will come back tomorrow, and if they want to remind themselves of something, as opposed to the other platforms. People can do lives on TikTok dissecting the Senzo Meyiwa trial, but research proves beyond reasonable doubt that people are most likely to remember what they watch on YouTube and come back to it, as opposed to any other platform. So YouTube is very good in documenting history and keep it there, as opposed to any other platform. So having content creators, specifically YouTube content creators, they are the ones, or we are the ones who caused more damage on the Senzo Meyiwa trial. I mean damage in a sense that us speaking about this case, we documented history and made sure that we archive everything, making it easier for people who are working to come back to YouTube, and they can sit on a weekend and go back to YouTube. Thus, we've been able to counter a lot of things where people were paid to come and somehow pretend to be convicted that the state has a case against them. But because of the authenticity of people on the space, on YouTube specifically, and the fact that whenever we create this content, it stays longer. In fact, people will come back and watch our content again. it makes it important, an important platform that is not only just posting for views, but is shaping the narrative and affirming or reaffirming that we don't believe that these are the right people. We don't. So where I'm going with this, I'm simply saying, when you look at the impact of content creators, more specifically on YouTube, these are people who may or may not get the credit that they deserve. But in reality, it is content creators that have kept the case alive. Whether people want to agree, acknowledge or not, but it is content creators. From as far back as 2014, like I said, there were people who stood firm on TikTok, on X, or on Twitter, on X, formerly known as Twitter, stood firm and said, nope, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is right. You understand what I'm saying? But with the content creators, with the dawn of content creators, specifically for the Senzo Meyiwa trial, what it did was that it documented history, number one, inspired a lot of people to start this content creation, right, about the Senzo Meyiwa case, dissecting the Senzo Meyiwa case. What it then did, it centralized power. So as opposed to in the era of Men Are Not Paradox, it was easy to target that page because it was only that page. But now, how many people who are talking about the Senzo Meyiwa trial? You'll find that Bongan, SA Infotainment Podcast, I'm doing it. Unfiltered, Mzansi Unfiltered is doing it. Noni M is doing it. Jebs is doing it. Real Mastermind is doing it. Atlantis sometimes now is doing it. Mzansi Reality, they are doing it. 7 already, right? I'm probably forgetting some of content creators. They will beat me or they will hate on me. I'm just forgetting some of those content creators. But the point I'm driving home is there is quite a number of us who are talking about this case now. It's not reliant on one thing. At some point, there was Nobile Mapesa on the platform, right? So you have a lot of people. So power is almost centralized. So you can, even if you attack me these days, you know that the others will still continue anyway. There are people who are team defense and who doesn't buy it. So even if you attack SA Infotainment Podcast, because power is centralized, it's not about one person. It makes it difficult for them to target one person. Thus, it helps to keep the case alive. It also, what it does, it then makes sure that it highlights some of the inconsistency that happen on a day-to-day basis. But not only does it do that, what it does, it helps to keep people accountable in real time. And it helps to update people in real time. It helps to shape the narrative in real time. Because what you do realize with the Senzo Meyiwa trial, and I'm going to give you a bit of history here, and let me educate you. So when I started the Senzo Meyiwa, or full-time on the Senzo Meyiwa case, SA Infotainment Podcast, it was on the 17th of July, 2023, when the case itself started de novo with Judge Ratamo Hwahleng. I had been following the case even prior to that, but I was not full-time on the Senzo Meyiwa case, but I started being full-time, and I told myself that I was going to start de novo with the case, 17th July. So when I started, people used to post videos once a day, and they used to post an hour trying to sum up the case. When I came up with the concept of posting videos throughout the day instead of posting one video later. And when I started, I used to notice that the likes of, in fact, I studied Mzansi Reality. I studied Lelo N. I studied Atlantis. These three. Yeah, these three. Why them? I started them because they sit in front of the camera and they speak to the people, and so they develop this trust. I'm not saying people who are not showing their faces on cameras, they are not good, but I'm trying to say, in terms of research says, if you're building a brand, people are most likely to trust a person who's appearing on camera, and they are most likely to fall in love and trust the personality that they see, or a face that they see, as opposed to people who are doing voiceover, or who are doing voiceover, like Mzansi Unfiltered. Yeah, Mzansi Unfiltered, yes. I'm not saying that there aren't people who trust her. I'm saying I studied that research and I realized that people will gravitate towards these ones more. So that's why I studied them more. So upon understanding that, I then decided myself that I'm going to post the way I decided to disrupt posting almost every day. Ever since then, you notice that it is difficult for you to survive in this niche if you don't post like this. If you want to survive, you need to post like all of us. If you don't, you're not going to survive. I used to post videos like this throughout the day, maybe 5 videos throughout the day, including weekends. All of this only to make this point, that then it inspired a lot of people to start. So I'm busy studying the new YouTube channels that are emerging. The reason I don't mention some of them is because I'm trying to understand these ones that are emerging. But then the bigger point is, all these content creators are shaping the narrative in real time as it happened, and reaffirming that the Senzo Meyiwa trial, number one, there are corrupt cops there. The accused there, we don't believe are the right one. So the case is, it is where it is today because of content creators. Yes, we should also be grateful of Advocate Tefo, the role he played back when the case was in Boksburg, when they did not want to broadcast the case, when they did not want media. We should be thankful of Snobile Mapisa, who fought with Tefo to have this case broadcasted. If it wasn't for them, even the content creators that I'm giving them credit, they will not have, or we will not thrive if it wasn't for them. Now, I'm making that point to say then, content creators have kept the case alive and highlighted the inconsistencies in this case. You then ask yourself a question. If it wasn't for content creators, what do you think it would have happened? Like, think for a moment. If this case was running behind the scenes, what do you think it would have happened? And I want you to notice that I don't know about others, but I will want to believe, I honestly believe this, that all of us who are doing the Senzo Meyiwa case, we do it so because we love, or we will love to see justice. So the consequences of that is that we tend to push hard and keep them on their feet and make sure that we hold them accountable, because we will love to see, number one, justice. Number two, the real people getting arrested. So ask yourself a question. If it wasn't content creators who often remind you that, no, so and so said this, 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 so and so said this on this day, so and so said this, so and so said this. Like I am saying today, Ndlovu said this. If it wasn't for content creators, do you think the narrative will still have been the same? If it wasn't for content creators, do you think people, majority of us, will still believe this? Why I'm saying this? In mainstream media doesn't seem to understand what it means to be a mainstream media. How to broadcast things in such a way that if you are team state, cover team defense and their points to the best of your ability. So much so that even your reporting, it must equate to the fact that, or it must be at the level where you accommodate the skeptics, because I will consider myself skeptics to people who doesn't believe on the state, on the defense, or who believe that the state has a case against the accused. So I'm considered a skeptic to them. So I'm saying, mainstream media, it would have been easier for them to control the narrative. I mean, the other people to control the narrative about the Senzo Meyiwa case, if it wasn't for content creators. So there is a role that I want us to appreciate. But content creators did not achieve this alone. Content creators achieved all of this because there was interest generated by people before us, our successors. That's the point. We cannot run away from that. We cannot, not even our wildest dreams, can we deny the fact that we as YouTube content creators whose voice has more or is more it's easier to remember our voice as opposed to people who are only doing TikTok. It's easy to remember ours. And I'm telling you that in the future, people will remember our voices over the ones on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and X. People will remember more of the things we did on YouTube versus them. So we stand a chance of being remembered by history because we stood for what we believe in. Whether this accused ended up being sentenced or not, but history will remember us that we stood for what we believe in. And I want to emphasize this, that if it wasn't for what we believe in, if it wasn't for what we fought for, if it wasn't for content creators who are constantly showing you that this judge tells us that he remembers everything, but then he forgets the name of Gininda. He then calls him Ginanda. And you say, but you said you remembered everything, right? If it wasn't for these content creators who will show you videos about Stg Ndlovu, who admitted that they are capable of editing pictures, but cross-examination by Baloyi seeks to suggest otherwise. And I'm going to tell you, even in arguments, they will want to argue something that they know Stg Ndlovu said it is possible to edit pictures. So today, take a moment, think, and appreciate the fact that we've got people who create content out of their own, do this even when they are threatened. Some face death threat, but still do this content. Maybe it is about time we actually realize that content creators have played an important role in the case of Senzo Meyiwa. Maybe it is important that when we watch, I don't mean just my video, but I mean everybody's video. Maybe it is important that you like those videos. You comment on those videos. You share those videos. You also send super thanks if you've got money. You donate in any way, shape, or form where it's possible, because this case have created a lot of animosity, have put other people's life in danger. And it has done quite a lot. As much as, yes, there's somehow a remuneration that one gets from YouTube, but the honest truth is the money that we get on YouTube is too small, to be quite honest. People who get a lot of money on YouTube are the ones in first world countries such as Spain, UK, Canada, America, Germany. Those countries, content creators in those countries makes a lot of money, serious money, as opposed to this type of content creators that I've just mentioned. Us, and it's even worse, us, we are in the third world country, so we make so little. Some people will see you buying cameras and they forget that we buy these cameras with with everything that we have, as opposed to the ones in America. They can do the video that I did and make a lot of money, enough that they can buy this camera and the next camera and this camera all at once and still have more money because they are in a first world country. So it'll be interesting and it'll be nice if we start seeing people appreciating content creators in this country. One of the things that is going to kill this thing is the fact that content creators are not appreciated. Even when you start, even when you want to sell a merchandise, it's not going to be sold because people are not supporting content creators. They support, and people who say, but post as many videos as possible, you make money. They don't even watch those ads anyway. So it's not like content creators are making money because maybe you watch all of those ads. You skip those ads because you are interested in the video. But then when they say, please support, you also don't support. You know what I'm trying to say? So if people want to see this case, if people want to see the Senzo Meyiwa trial being kept at bay, I believe the best way to do so is to support these content creators in all way, shape, or form. I mean, all. And I speak for everybody. Everybody. It would be nice if all content creators are supported by us who are consumers of the content, who wants to see them posting those content. It will help us to do the following. It will help us to say, it will help us with regards to the following. It is going to encourage people to create content, do more research. It is going to help hiring people who will also help with more depth. Like in my case, I want to bring legal minds, but then you can't even afford their transport. We need people who will support us legally, who will help us understand the case legally. But we do not have the financial means to get people. I've spoken to quite a number of lawyers, by the way. I want to develop a specific content for people who are lawyers, who will come and dissect the case. But, it would be nice to invite them and say, listen, I don't have much, but at least I have maybe this 2,000 rand. Please cover your transportation fee as well as your airtime and your, whilst we are talking, please buy some cold drink. They are motivated to come to your platform and have a conversation with you about the case, as opposed to now I'm just asking them, they must not make money and come in my platform and say things for free. Do you see where I'm going? So we will build more, and I'm trying to sound as professional as possible. We will build more strong army. We will be more stronger if we were supporting one another. Because I don't think I'm the only one who has a vision of bringing lawyers and all the stuff. I think there are more people who are also interested in bringing professionals in any way, shape, or form. I don't know how they want to do it. Me, I have my own way of how I want to do it. But it has always been the financial side. And I've realized, even when I try to say, guys, please support, I realize that, the support is always lacking. But I tell you the truth. If people were to support, and then money is in the bank account, and people really starting to support, before the end of March, we'll have our own lawyer here who will come and say, okay, guys, because so-and-so said this, legally this is what it means. Because so-and-so said this legally this is what it means. You see what I'm saying? It will then help us as team defense to even build more of trust, if I may say, and it will help us to be repeatable, and also it will help us to capture the people who are somehow now in doubt, because when they do the survey, the fact that there are people who are still in the middle, we need to win them over to the defense side. But because We don't have the LLP. How are we going to win them? So we need lawyers like Alton. But how do we get them? How do we say to them, listen, this is how much we have this week. Help us. You see what I'm trying to say? So I think we can do more. And I believe that my colleagues here also have a vision of their own, also have their mission. Why I'm saying that is because I'm always watching what other people are doing. And I do realize that, you know what, I'm not the main steering here. That's what I've come to realize. Not that I once think of it that way, but I'm saying, I know it as a matter of fact that I'm not a steering. So if I'm thinking of something that can improve the quality of the conversation about the case of Senzo Meyiwa, specifically in favor of its defense, I'm also sure and certain that my fellow content creators, my fellow colleagues are also thinking about something as well. It might be different than me, but I do know that whatever they are thinking about, it is to enhance the quality of the content. And when I mean the quality of the content, I don't mean the technical aspect of the conversation. I mean, I don't mean the camera, the mics, the editing. No. I mean getting a lawyer. It is important. And research. And people will tell you, why don't you do a proper research? Yes, cut seep. Because the problem is time. Time is, you know what I'm saying? If you want me to do proper research, I will deliver 1 or 2 videos a week because I will have to put everything together. But if I have a team, then I know that I assign this one and say, find me this research. Personally, I've got an idea of how I want this research. But I can't afford a team. If I can find, do you see what I'm trying to say? So it's actually something that has come to me that it has dawned to me that, you know what, we will be far by now if only we had people, strong, qualified individuals who will stand by us and support the narrative and prove it legally and back it up legally. Because right now, it will appear like now we don't have people. It was only Elton who used to, he used to stand on our side. And since he's no longer getting the invitation, and I don't know why, since he's no longer getting the invitation, we're just left we're just left like this to go and perish. No one, absolutely no lawyer. But you know what is said? When you meet them, because I do meet them, I do talk to them. Even on the 19th of January, for instance, I was in Randburg Magistrate Court. I met one of the lawyers. We spoke. And that lawyer showed me something. He said to me, or she said to me, Bongan, what happened on the Senzo Meyiwa trial or case, these people, they were intentionally destroying that case. And this lawyer said, I've dealt with criminal cases. It's my specialties. She said to me, Bongan, you must know when there's something significant happening in this country, the state doesn't deploy juniors. She said, no matter what, she said, go and check any crime scene in this country, top crime scene. She said to me, you must notice how police treat that. They often send senior members who will make sure in fact, she put it this way. She said to me, they know what they are looking for on the crime scene. Things that the junior members doesn't know. They know how to gather evidence. Things that junior police officers doesn't know. She said to me, look at what happened on the Senzo Meyiwa case. You get into the crime scene, there are people who don't even take statements. Why? Why didn't this? She said to me, when you hear that Senzo Meyiwa is shot, the first thing you do, you deploy the best of the best to go and gather as much evidence as possible, including, but not limited to, getting statement from everybody who's around who might have seen something. She said to me, you gather as many statements as possible, as much evidence as possible, even if that evidence is immaterial. But you gather everything, then you go and analyze it. She said, but in the Senzo Mewa case, they sent juniors. Why did they send juniors in a case like this? Only the senior members only arrive later. When the senior members arrive, you remember that they found the projectile next to 2 bottles of you remember that? Do you remember that we heard from some of the people who were in the crime scene that they were able to move in and out of a crime scene that was already cordoned? This lawyer was proving to me that if there were senior members, a lot of these things wouldn't have happened. But it only happened because there was no senior member. So the intention around that case was never to preserve evidence to begin with. So she was proving me that that's the case. All I'm saying is we've got a problem here. And our biggest problem is these lawyers that should have proven to us that this is how a case is handled from crime scene. They would be able to back up some of the things that the defense is saying there, but we don't have them. So it may not be me, and I'm not saying I should be the one. I'm saying if any of my colleagues on the platform have an idea of how to advance the cause and create quality conversation, it is about time that we then decide as people to say, let's invest more on these content creators who have a potential of helping people understand the case beyond the courtroom by bringing these experts. There's a guy called Tabang. He's a criminal expert, if I'm not mistaken. A person like that, I thought of interviewing him and say, I want him to help me unpack what is happening on the Senzo Mewa case. To see things like that. It would be nice to have such conversations. But it costs. Because sometimes a person will say to you, yeah, Bonganam, I can do it for free. But then cover my transportation fee, which is fair, by the way. Personally, those are some of the challenges that I've been facing. And I'm sorry if this video took a different trajectory. It did so because I'm trying to highlight something here that, guys, we've got a problem. Our biggest problem is that if it's not for content creators, this case, I always wonder, ngabi kuphi today?